Greetings, everyone. Chris Hislop from the Montana World Affairs Council, and this is What, So What, Now What, our international affairs broadcast that connects you with an expert on the issue of the day, and just a few moments later, you become the expert. Today, we have with us a very distinguished guest and no greater expert on the situation in Iran than Dr. Mehrdad Kia. Dr. Kia is a professor of history and director of the University of Montana's Central and Southwest Asian Studies Center. His research and teaching focuses on the history of the Middle East, Central Asia, North Africa, and Islamic civilization. He's published extensively and is the recipient of numerous teaching awards. Welcome, Dr. Kia. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you very much for your invitation. It's truly an honor and privilege to be with you and with all our participants.
Well, we're very delighted to have you, Dr. Kia. Now, the protests in Iran are on their 14th day. They were triggered by the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who died in a hospital 3 days after being apprehended for not abiding by the state's hijab rules. Protests are now all across Iran, some 40 cities. We understand dozens killed, 1,200 arrested. Dr. Kia, could you help our viewers understand what is going on in Iran?
Well, I think a cultural and social revolution have been taking place. And just an example, just two examples very briefly. One, the population of Iran in 1979, when the revolution against the Shah took place, was 36 million people. Today, the population of Iran is 84 million. It is a very young population. About, we would say about 65 to 70% are below 30 years old. It is an extremely young population. Out of that 84 million, 41 million are women, which means the population of women in Iran is larger than the total population of Iran in 1979. And this is not just the issue of gender, it is that these 41 million people are producing, these 41 million women are producing some of the best doctors, dentists, journalists, writers, poets, teachers, professors, researchers, surgeons, and so on and so forth. 57 to 60% of all Iranian graduates from universities are women. This is very important issues. And at the same time, women are discriminated at their jobs, at their salary level. And of course, the symbol of this discrimination and oppression is the mandatory hijab, as you mentioned correctly yourself. That is, the women have to be dressed in a particular fashion. And this morality police goes around towns, cities, making sure that all women are dressed properly. And if they are not, then they are detained. But when they are detained, no one knows about what happens in those trucks, vans, which takes them to security centers. And this is what happened to Mahsa, our dear Mahsa, the 22-year-old Kurdish woman who was detained. She was just visiting her brother in Tehran. She was detained. And when you look at Mahsa and her dress, everyone tells me, what is wrong with that dress? She's actually very properly dressed, even according to government mandatory, standards. But of course, she was beaten up. There was beating to the head. She collapsed while in the detention center. By the time they rushed her to the hospital, as you mentioned, she was pronounced dead. Now, Kurdistan, Western Iran, was the first place where the demonstrations began. But as you also mentioned correctly again, it spread immediately. So there are three things we should remember. The amazing unity of the Iranian people, regardless of geography, ethnicity, language, religion, Armenian, Jewish, Baha'i, Muslim, Shia, and Sunni, Zoroastrian, everyone is joining this. Kurd, Azerbaijani, Persian, Arab, Baluchi in Southeastern, they're all joining this in a unified fashion. Second, it's very important, they are all targeting one person and one system. That is Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, and the Islamic regime itself, which has imposed political Islam, or what we call Islamic fundamentalism, for the last 4 decades. And finally, very interesting, they're calling for democracy, for their democratic rights. And what I'm hearing more and more recently is a national referendum for the Iranian people to determine their fate.
Dr. Kia, this is obviously an extremely significant event for the country and its people, but can you help us understand how this affects us here in Montana and in the United States?
First and foremost, that's an excellent question. First and foremost, I think it will have a profound impact not only on Iran, but also on the region surrounding Iran. Iran, as you know, is a non-Arab country, but already in Turkey, in the Arab world, in Israel, there are demonstrations in solidarity with the Iranian people. So the impact of it on neighboring dictatorial regimes, especially in the Arab world, is going to be profound. Just like Arab Spring had a profound impact on non-Arab neighbors of the Arab countries. But more importantly, I think the United States right now is on a crossroad. On the one hand, the US government was negotiating a new nuclear deal with Iran to stop the development of nuclear warheads by weaponization of the nuclear industry by the Iranians. On the other hand, the United States is very well aware of the violation of human rights. In Montana, we will definitely be impacted by the rise of energy costs, especially because Iranian oil will be slowed or even stopped. Because what I understand is that oil refinery workers are going on strike shortly, and all that can have a tremendous global impact on the top of the fact that, as you know very well, Russian oil and gas have already been sort of stopped. And with that, the cost of energy, not only in Europe, but in the United States, will be greatly impacted.
Well, Dr. Kia, we couldn't simply not have asked for a clearer explanation of what's going on and how it really affects us and our communities and our nation on a day-to-day basis. I do want to mention to our viewers that Dr. Kia will be joined by former U.S. Ambassador John Limbert. He was the former U.S. Ambassador to the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, but he was also a hostage in the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. He's having a brown bag lecture at the University of Montana's University Center on noon, Wednesday, October 5th. And that is open to the public. So if you'd like to hear a more detailed account of the situation in Iran and its impact on all of us, please join Dr. Kia and Ambassador Limbert on Wednesday, October 5th. I'd also like to quickly thank our very generous sponsors at the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation, Allegiance, and Stockman Bank, who help us bring this and so many more programs to you. Dr. Kia at the University of Montana, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.